Break Fix Podcast is all about capturing the living history of people from all over the autosphere, from wrench turners and racers to artists, authors, designers, and everything in between. Our goal is to inspire a new generation of petrol heads that wonder, how did they get that job or become that person? The road to success is paved by all of us because everyone has a story. I'm Brad. With me, as always, is my co-host Eric.
Hey,
And oftentimes we say it's not about the destination; it's all about the journey. So in this episode, our inaugural episode, we're going to answer the questions: Who is GTM? Which GTM is short for Gran Touring Motorsports. Where did we come from, and where are we going? And Eric, take it away.
all right. So let's start with our mission statement, right? Just to kind of summarize who we are right off the bat. Grand Touring Motorsports is a non-traditional motorsports club started in 2014 as a social group of car enthusiasts. We've expanded into all sorts of motorsport and want to share our experiences with you. Our membership consists of a bunch of petrol heads who like to get together and have a great time. But years of racing, wrenching, and motorsports experience brings together a top-notch collection of knowledge, stories, and information. As a whole, we serve several areas, what we call the DMV, the Northeast, our southern states, and our mountain region. Our areas of interest revolve around high performance drivers education, HPDE, autocross, club racing, kart racing, drag racing, off-roading, car shows, or just about anything car related. So I'll thank one of our region chiefs, Brett, for carefully repenning our mission statement 2 years ago. It sounds really good. But what does all that really mean at the end of the day? So this story goes back well before 2014. This is one of those Golden Girls moments, picture it, Sicily, 1943. But in reality, it actually kind of goes that far back. I come from a long line of car enthusiasts, grassroots mechanics, etc. My dad wanted to be a race car driver when he was a kid, told stories about standing at the fences outside of Maranello watching Niki Lauda go around the test track, right? So it's been in the blood, being Italian, racing and soccer and Formula One, it's all a passion, right? So it's passed down through the genes. But our story, right, you and I, Brad, our story starts in 1995.
Yes, that is correct.
For the listeners out there, right, the history of GTM starts that far back, right, 25 years ago. And we just celebrated our 25th, or no, whatever it was, 20th high school reunion or something like that. As it turns out, the way they did things way back then, besides the nuns were still rapping us on the knuckles and everything else, is they would place us in alphabetical order in class, depending on what classes you were in and what classes you were taking together. So I forget, it was like English class or something. Brad happens to be the last name directly behind mine and sat behind me in class. And I met him basically my, first day of school. You were the jock, right? You're the baseball player and all that. And I was the car nerd.
But correction, I wasn't just the jock, and I actually never made it on any of the teams, the organized teams at school. I apparently wasn't good enough, or various other reasons that I care not to get into at this time. But I was a music geek too. So I did 4 years of band at DeMatha and all that good stuff. But anyway, yeah. So simple little correction there. I was a little bit of a jock, but not at the high school level. Apparently wasn't good enough.
All right, my bad. Hey, there were three big cliques in our school. You were either an academic, in the band, or in sports, and I was in none of those. So I was the kid sitting in front of you holding magazines up, reading it, most of them in Italian too, that my grandfather would bring me. I remember we kind of started talking about cars, and I think I don't remember if it was my freshman year or sophomore year, and my dad dropped me off in our 7911 wide body, and then you were like, "So tell me about this car."
That actually, it wasn't just one time either. It happened all the time. I don't know if you forgot your homework at home, if your dog ate it was the excuse you were giving the teachers at the time. I don't know. But yes, I saw this red 911 that sounded like, a 7.0 earthquake was hitting the earth. And yes, it was a beautiful car. And I was like, who the heck is that guy dropping off his kid's homework? Oh man!
But you could hear that car from 2 miles away because it was straight piped. It was like going to Le Mans or something. It's bonkers, right? But yeah, so it got a lot of attention. So you and I got to talking about cars, and I was already a gearhead, right? I had been going to pro solos, been going to track events since I was a little kid. I mean, there's pictures of my mom with me in a stroller at a Pro Solo in Harrisburg. I mean, it's like, it goes that far back. And like I said, it comes from a racing family, right? My dad was a Pro Solo autocrosser. He was an instructor, various clubs, SCCA, the Sports Car Club of America, PCA, the Porsche Club of America, Audi Club, etc. But even my mom was into it, right? She used to autocross my dad's cars, the Scirocco's, 914, stuff like that, back when there was ladies class, right? Way back in the 80s and stuff like that. So like I said, it's just in the family.
Yeah, and to touch on the ladies class real quick, just a little tangent, a little joke that we've got going on throughout the club. There's a W series now also, so there's still a ladies series. This isn't a new idea. Just a little shout out to some of our club members. Inside joke there.
Yeah. Welcome back to 1982, right? But but with that being said, right, we were primarily a Volkswagen, Audi, Porsche family, and very heavily in the VW side of things. We've had a VW in the family consistently since the 1960s, and that goes early 60s, and that goes back to my grandparents. I grew up in the back of Mark I and Mark II Scirocco's, and we never had anything stock in our house. It was kind of funny. My mom had, I posted pictures of it on Instagram not long ago. She had a full Zender kit, pewter gray Scirocco, beautiful car. I mean, we had always I want to say kind of the latest and greatest thing. My dad pre-ordered a 16 valve. We had a Corrado. I mean, all these other cars. We've always been at that sort of thing. So that, again, it trickled down to me, trickled down to my sister. As time progressed, we got out of, actually, I started autocrossing in high school, but you started just shortly after. Or I guess we were doing it about then, but you were also into the Land Pirate stuff.
That didn't start until 2000, 2001. Okay. After high school graduation, I started going to Montgomery College and met a couple kids. And that's when I started. I was always into cars. I don't know how, because nobody else in my family is or was. I think my dad might have been back when he was 16, and he had an old AMC that he took to some guy's house.
Oh boy.
And they completely destroyed it. The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree in that respect. But anyway, yeah, he was into cars back then, but he grew out of it, got into pickup trucks and fishing, and all his money went into boats instead of cars and everything. I don't know where I retained the desire to have cars and become a car enthusiast and all that stuff. But yeah, in high school, I was into cars. I never had any money, so I couldn't afford anything cool. We never had anything cool when I was growing up, except for an 80s box Chevy Caprice with the 350 motor. That car was pretty legit. And then, I don't know, I started hanging out with these guys from college, freshman year. They had cool cars. One had a 924S Porsche. Another guy had a Thunderbird Super Coupe. And he's still in the car club. He's got a couple other cool cars now. But in 2001, I bought my first brand new car. It was a 2001 GTI Volkswagen. We do like Volkswagens here. That's not the only cars that are part of the club. I want to make sure that I specify that. But we do like the Volkswagen, the VAG products. So I bought that. I don't know why or how I ended up connecting with you again. But I was looking for something to do with the car. And we started hanging out again, started going to Porsche Club autocrosses up at Fort Meade. What was the Tipton Airfield?
Tipton Airfield, yeah. That was a great lot, man. It was, good stuff.
Yeah, it lasted a couple months until 9/11 happened.
Yeah, that was really unfortunate.
They shut everything down, yeah.
Yeah.
And so 2001, just after high school, was when I started getting into the autocross stuff, and then we kind of reconnected, kept going from there.
Yeah, so by that point, if you remember, I also had so it's kind of backtracking a couple of years. My first car, man, I wanted a 16 valve GTI, something fierce. Like, and to credit where credit's due, we had a lot of two-door coupes, throughout our lifetime. My dad was like, no boxes on wheels, right? He hated the Golf for some reason. Like, he just despised it. And I was always like, oh, it must be the rebel in me. It's like, he's in love with the Scirocco. I got to have a GTI, right? I got to have the opposite of what he has, regardless of the fact they're the same car underneath. But so I ended up, after all that, there's some stories there we can tell. But regardless, I ended up with that 5-cylinder Audi making noise from here to God's creation, like a dragon with a dynamite up its butt. If you remember.
I was going to say, so the noise definitely runs in the family, apparently.
There are no stock cars here. They're all loud.
except for the new Chrysler. That's the only stock car you have.
The spaceship.
Yeah.
But so at any rate, I had that GT Coupe, and so I don't know. I always dive into everything like 1,001%, and so I got really attached to those cars because, as we used to joke in the house, it's just a fat Scirocco at the end of the day, right? And it was penned by the same guy that designed the Scirocco, all that kind of stuff. Bigger motor. It was a lot of, and they were a lot of fun. Great, best handling car of 1986, according to some poll out there. But at the time, if you think about it, that car was, only 10 years old. And so it was like, it's pretty cheap, whatever, I can get it, reliable, 5-cylinder will run forever. So I was on the quest, to make it into something. And as you remember, you had your GTI, I was autocrossing an Audi. But at the same token, kind of in the, I was in the comp sci side of things while you were playing the saxophone or whatever. And I had gotten into web development, right? And early on, I mean, you're talking the mid to late 90s, there weren't a ton of people doing web development. It was still like a blossoming thing. So I had gotten involved in the local clubs. I was, doing a bunch of timing and scoring software for autocrosses, for SCCA and PCA and stuff like that. But I also got into the web side of things. And so I started to learn kind of from the inside what it was like to run a car club, at least from the digital side of the house in the early days. So that got me thinking. I'm overly obsessed with the GT Coupe, and I bought my very first domain, which was grantouring.org. It was off of some random guy that was cyber squatting with the domain. And I stood up a website called Gran Touring Audi. The deal with Gran Touring Audi was it was an online community for owners and enthusiasts worldwide. Yeah, it was mostly dudes from the UK on a bulletin board with a web, kind of a wiki like thrown on top of it, because I was trying to collect as much information about those cars as possible because they were so unique from year to year to year. They just kept changing them for whatever reason. I ran that at the same time as I was running the Audi Club, the local Audi Club website for the DC region. And then I was also picking up more work like that, along with everything I was doing. Ultimately, I ran that for about 5 years, and then I merged it into Potomac Chesapeake region of Audi Club, and some of the content actually still exists on that website today, because it's just migrated so many times and changed hands and things like that. And so at that point, I had focused my attention elsewhere. I was now working for Porsche National and doing their website. I did that for a bunch of years, and my dad at the same time was getting out of basically a very long career in IT. He was a mainframe programmer, and he wanted to go pursue his passion, and he ended up going to work for Electromotive and a bunch of other stuff. And he decided that there was a space in the market to resell VAG parts, right? Volkswagen Audi Group parts. Back then, during that time period, ECS really wasn't what it is today, right? It wasn't as available. The internet was still doing its thing, and e-commerce still wasn't there. He wanted to stand up this company to be able to do this kind of thing. He came to me and he's like, I need a name, because I can't just go out there and say, hey, it's blah, blah, blah's company. And it's like, okay, well, how about we just, despite our Scirocco versus golf conversations, we had a common focus on the Audi coupes, first and second generation cars. And so I said, well, GT, Gran Touring, right? I just gave that up. Why don't we take that and just put motorsports on the end of it? So then that way it's all encompassing, right? Because you are catering to pro solo guys, local autocrossers, track rats, the guys that just need parts for their cars.
And I believe at one point I even ended up buying some brake pads and stuff for this Audi S8 that I had. So it's just, he had the Gran Touring Audi. He was able to hook a lot of people up with parts and everything. I don't know how he was able to get, distributor rights or whatever he had. I don't know exactly.
I don't remember either, but times were different then. I mean, we're talking like 15 plus years ago at this point. So doing the resale side of the business, very different than it is today. I mean, trying to get hooked up with ECS and Eurotuning and those guys today is a little bit more difficult and a little bit more challenging, at least for small guys like us, right?
Right.
So fast forward a bunch of years, and basically what we ended up doing and kind of spawned some of the early kind of the roots of GTM in a way is we used to do these like kart leagues, and my dad would like try to organize them with me, and we would have like 10, 15 plus guys come out, and we would rent out like a facility, or we'd go there and get all day passes and just basically take over the place, right? And then we would, you know, because I had a timing and scoring background, I'd keep track of all that kind of stuff, and we'd points and this and that, and then the top guys, we'd fly all over the country and go race and do that kind of thing. So we did that for a number of years, and it was a lot of fun. It's a lot of wear and tear on my back though. As I started to do that, you know, autocross was fading in the DC area because parking lots got harder and harder to rent. Now everybody kind of does their pilgrimage to FedEx Field because it's the only lot that doesn't have telephone poles every 6 feet and islands and curbs and stuff. And so my dad started to phase away from autocross and get into deeper and deeper into road racing and teaching and all that kind of stuff.
And I think that's around that same time when you all stopped doing the autocrosses and things, I started transitioning. I had sold the GTI. I had it for a couple of years and ended up selling it, trading it in for a 99 Z28 Camaro.
Oh boy.
That was, to this day, it's the fastest car I've ever owned, which isn't really saying that much, but it was really quick. But I did maybe 1 or 2 autocrosses with it. And by that time, autocrossing was just hard to get into if you weren't trying to do it with SCCA, Sports Car Club of America.
Yeah.
I was still trying to do it with Porsche Club because your dad was still somewhat involved with it. But then I just transitioned over to drag racing and got out of autocross, like you're saying, because it started winding down.
Exactly. So at the same time, my dad started getting really hyper-focused on crazy engine swaps, right? I mean, we've done some weird stuff. Probably one of the first people to do a twin spark 3.6 in a 914. We did the Audi UR Quattro with a 3.6 V8. We did an Audi Coupe Quattro second gen with a 4.2 S8 motor in it. Like, and I'm in the process of I've done some swaps myself, but he always had this focus of building like the ultimate track weapon or the ultimate autocross weapon, right? And it was, and he had certain go-tos. I mean, the 914 was bonkers. I mean, the last times I drove that thing with the 3.6, it was like you looked where you needed to be and you were past that point. Ridiculous, Herculean effort to drive that car. You know, he got away from that car a little bit. I think it scared him. He had a couple sideways moments in it that were very difficult to control, and so he hooked into the whole Audi thing. Went back to his roots, right? That whole VAG thing. Unfortunately, my sister would know better than me, but in 06, 07 time frame, he was diagnosed with stage 4 brain cancer. So during all that, we kind of tried to finish out a lot of the projects we had going. The last one being my UR Quattro, which I actually finished after he had passed away in 2010. Incredible build. I don't want to do it again. Really cool car. Big bummer, right? Because my dad was the type of guy over the years, he amassed so many connections, so many relationships. I mean, his funeral is incredible. All these guys from different car clubs came out, and it looked like cars and coffee out in the parking lot, and it was crazy. I mean, you would have thought a senator had passed away or something. There was like 300 plus people there. It was just bonkers, right? And so at any rate, that takes a toll on you. You have to figure out how to grieve, how to go through all that kind of stuff. About a year passed, and I just was like in a funk, right? And I'm just like, I don't know what to do. It's like racing doesn't have the same appeal anymore. Autocross is gone, karting, yeah, whatever. And finally my wife was like, you know what, you need to go do something. Yeah, because I didn't have any projects, right? The project was the house or whatever. And basically she kind of kicked me in the butt and said, get out, go do something. And I'm like, are you really sure about this? In my infinite wisdom, I decided it was a genius idea to take my highly modified Jetta diesel and attempt to turn it into a diesel cup car. Yeah, it didn't really go very well. But
I was gonna say they do really well when they've got factory backed mechanics and support and sponsorship and funds, which you had none of those things.
Yeah, and really bad ideas for what the good part should be. I did have verified dyno sheets, 320 foot-pounds at the front wheels. It was a hell of a motor. I will say, though, it didn't last but half a season because I blew it up at VIR at just shy of 140 miles an hour at red line. Yeah, it was not good. The Devil's Fuel does still power me.
and the Devil's Fuel still powers that car, too. It belongs to a GTM member to this day. I think it's on its third, fourth motor, something like that.
I can only claim the first one. Matthew will get on my case. One of the members of the group will get on my case from time to time about diesels, and we've had a diesel in the family since the mid '90s. It's just another weird obsession. I don't think I can ever not have one. That being said, Jess was like, "Get out of the house, go figure something out." I'm like, all right, if you say so. So we went to the track, blew the car up, came home, and I was like, man, this cannot get any worse, right? I'm like, this was a complete failure. Luckily, Matthew, who I mentioned just a couple minutes ago, he calls me and he goes, I got a car for you. With a weird pregnant pause, I'm like, what exactly are we talking about here? He goes, well, you're not going to like it. I'm not going to like it. Well, it's a TT. And I'm like, and the reason he said that is because he knows how much my father despised those cars, right? And he had all sorts of terrible names for them, which is also why we call it the Terrible Toad, which is the cleanest of the nicknames he would give those cars. I was like, you know what? The Red Bull is back. Dad hated him. I'm getting it. And I ended up picking it up for the mechanics lane. So it had a blown motor. It had been sitting in the corner of a shop, single owner. It had been there for like 3 or 4 years, not running. Matthew was gracious enough to tow it all the way up from VIR to my house. And then I started tearing it apart. We had that car track ready. I'm going to put air quotes around that in 65 days. From when it got towed up here to putting it on its first track day. And I borrowed a lot of the parts in the Jetta and stuff like that. So that leads us to my first couple events. This was my now foray. I've got a dedicated car. It's stripped down. It's this, it's that. I'm ready to go. And so I'm starting to meet people. And this is circa 2011.
Well, before we get into what happens next, I've got to rewind a little bit and talk about my progression a little bit too. From when we kind of split, I went the drag racing way. You were still doing things and things that were happening with your father. So I was still into drag racing, did a little bit of illegal street racing as well, which I'm not proud of. I do not recommend it to anybody, but it is a part of my past. So it is a part of, kind of what makes me who I am. Fast forward from 2003, I think, is when I bought the Camaro. About 2 years to 2005-ish, I totaled the car. I was driving on some back roads, and a truck pulling a horse trailer made a left turn over a blind hill in front of me, and I rammed right into the back of the trailer. So if anybody wonders what my screen name that I use across all these different social platforms is, Mr. Ed killed my Z. Mr. Ed the horse, because there was a horse trailer, killed my Z28. It's very sad. It was one of my favorite cars.
The origin story within the origin story. I like that.
There you go. It's the origin inception story.
Oh, yeah. Well, which level of hell are we on now?
I think we're level 3 now. But from that point, I've had a 96 Cobra. I've bought a 2004 GTI VR6, which I wish I still had. It would have been a great track car. And various other cars and motorcycles. I think I've owned like 25, 26 different vehicles in my life.
And we'll talk about that in another episode.
That will be another episode. That almost needs its own like series, its own mini series. But anyway, from that point on, I did some drag racing. I got into off-roading with Jeeps and everything like that. Fast forward to about 2012-ish. I was working. I was going on a work trip to Omaha, Nebraska. And I didn't know anything about Omaha, Nebraska, because who the hell goes to Nebraska? So I put it on Facebook, because everybody posts everything they do in their world on Facebook.
Now it's just boomers.
Now it's just boomers, which we act like boomers now. So
yeah,
that's why we still use Facebook. But anyway, so I didn't know what to do. I was going for an entire week in Omaha, Nebraska. I needed to find something to do other than go to this training class. So I put on Facebook, I'm going to Omaha. What is there to do? And then my good buddy Eric posted, well, I'm going to be there too. So we met up. I think it was Omaha, so it's not too far from Council Bluffs. I think you were staying in Council Bluffs.
Correct. That is correct.
And
he said steak, so he had my attention.
Of course. Sidebar, Omaha steaks, if you get them in Omaha, overrated. The steak place wasn't all that good.
That's very true. We can do better, and we've done better.
But anyway, it was then that he was telling me about the car stuff that he was into and all this, all the fun things. I had been really missing a car. I mean, I had my Jeep. I was doing off-roading and stuff, which was fun, but I missed doing something.
It was a manual, people. It was a manual. I'll give you that.
Yeah, both of the Wranglers that I had a TJ and a JK, and both of them were manuals. So they're fun in their own right. I could get it to chirp tires in first and second gear, but I was looking to get back into cars, like doing something fast, like autocross or whatever. And so we started talking, and we ended the dinner. We ended, the trips or whatever, and we kept in touch. We ended up setting up a "what car should I buy" email thread with a couple other people that Eric knew, which started, if you're a member of the club or you know anything about us, the "what car should I buy" topic is probably the most popular topic in GTM ever. Everybody's asking, what car should I buy? What should I do? Should I get this? Should I do that? The answer is never HHR, by the way. Just going to say.
Oh, there is no Blip Shift T-shirt that says the answer is HHR.
No, I don't care how fast your little milkman grocery getter can be made. It's still an HHR. But I digress. So yeah, we set up this email thread, and then that was going for about a year or so. Fast forward to 2003. I finally buy a car. Or no, 2013. Excuse me. Back to the future. We're going back to the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, he's buying a DeLorean.
88 miles an hour.
Yep.
So I bought this Volkswagen, and I started building it for track stuff. Thanks to my mechanic, is fantastic, Mr. Monterstelli over there.
Yeah.
And I ended up doing my first event with a bunch of other people that Eric knew from the tracking world. It was May 2013, I think it was. It was with Porsche Club on Shenandoah Circuit. And Tanya was there. I know she had just bought her Beetle, her first dedicated track car as well.
Mm-hmm.
So a bunch of newbies coming out, and it was just an awesome time. And, I'll let you take it from there. But that brings us both up to this time frame where we're both tracking.
Yeah, exactly. So, I was still in that weird phase of, is it a track car? Is it a street car? And, Matthew continues to remind me, you cannot have your cake and eat it too. So the straw that broke the camel's back was the first pilgrimage to Mid-Ohio. And Jess, we were, packed the car loaded, couldn't see out the back, like all this stuff. And, Sparco bucket fixed back seats on coilover suspension, and we're trying to drive home 8 hours from Mid-Ohio, and Jess is like, I don't know that my tailbone exists anymore. You know what I mean? And at that point I knew it was over. I was dedicated, and we were going to go off the deep end. But that being said, I was still in this mode, right, post my dad passing, where it's like, I want to bring back that feeling of going to the track and being with my friends and all that kind of stuff that I grew up with. And the clubs back in the day were very different than they are now. Now they're very coin operated. They're very much about, the bottom dollar. Don't get me wrong. They provide a very professional and very legitimate service, and everybody loves it, and that's good. We're very different, right? Our idea is family. Our idea is getting together. It's prolonging the communication. It's not about just keeping up the Joneses. We'll talk a lot more about fellowship in a future episode, but there's a lot of that. It's more fraternal, as one of our region chiefs in the Northeast, Harry, likes to say all the time. It's more like a fraternity and sorority. We're co-ed here. I just want to point that out. And many of our ladies, by the way, they are very fast. They're very talented. It's a pleasure to meet all of them if any of our listeners get to come out and do so. I wanted to relive the past because I saw that there was something missing, right? I saw that the family aspect was gone, the get-togethers, the communication, those monthly meetings, those board meetings, all those things I was involved in even as a kid, they weren't available anymore. And so you and I got to talking about it, and I said, we had the listserv going on good old Google groups. It was like, why don't we just make a club? I already knew how to run a car club, at least from a digital perspective. And again, we're sitting there, oddly enough, and we're fretting over what to call it. And you just turn to me and go,
why not Gran Touring Motorsports?
Boom, done, right? So
we've already got a name.
And we had a logo, and we had a lot of other stuff that we could leverage from my dad's company, which had been shut down. There was actually already brand recognition there, at least in the local area, so that was good. And people are like, oh, that's still a thing. Can I still order oil filters for my for my cabrio or what? Uh, but that being said, that took us to really late, like you said, it took us to late 2013. So like kind of the OG members, me, you, Matt, Tanya, and so on, we're really all 2013 people, but we say the first date is, 20, January of 2014. Our first actual member, non-core group, was like February of 14 is the first like application we ever got submitted in. Our first year, we grew pretty big. I mean, we had 15, 17 people, something like that within the first calendar year. And then we just kept growing. We'll talk about where we're going and where we are here in a minute.
In addition to, starting the club, I remember we were sitting in your living room at your house, and Jess was there as well. And we weren't just kicking around the idea of a car club. We were kicking around the ideas of, maybe we should open a shop. We talked about getting like an L-shaped building where part of the shop was like a museum to the cars and everything like that. Part of it is, people can come and work on their stuff. Somehow that morphed into, let's start a car club, because as it'll probably mention later on here, people don't like going to the track by themselves. That was one of the big deterrents to me after my first time going in May the previous year. Is I went, it was a lot of fun. I went with everybody else, but then I started thinking about, well, if I'm going to go to these other events, how am I going to coordinate and make sure other people are there that I like? I don't want to go and sit there by myself. I did a couple autocrosses by myself. That's not really fun. That's when we started talking about really, let's make this a big group. We can coordinate when everybody's going to the tracks, what everybody's doing outside of the track. Because as you all who are members of GTM know, it's not just, track events. That's not what we're all about. We go to car shows, we go to swap meets, we go to movies. I mean, we do all kinds of stuff. It's not just about the track. And keeping in touch with these people, they're your track friends, but they're also just friends.
All right. So now that we've kind of completed the birth of GTM, I'm going to insert here. For those of you that have fast forwarded the last, half hour or so, you're listening to GTM's podcast, Break Fix, with Brad and Eric. So now that we've kind of summarized the past, we're going to talk about where we are and where we're going. We're going to do this maybe in a little bit of a question answer format, and then talk about where we're going to go from there.
So where are we going? Right now, as Eric said before, when we first started, we were probably 3 or 4 members. We jumped in that first year to 15 to 20. Over the last 5 years from there, because we're up to year 6 now, we've got 70 members strong. We've got a social media presence that has been constantly growing thanks to our marketing genius over there in the other camera. Nice. And we're slowly bringing on more and more people, and that's 70 members net. I mean, we've had more members than that. We've had some people leave on their own volition. We've had to boot a couple members for various things, which we're not going to get into. Don't ever ask us. And it's just, we're trying to grow, but we don't want to get too big. We don't want to be a corner cravers or whatever some of those other car clubs were that got too big for their britches and ended up dissolving for various reasons. We want to very much still keep the same kind of family feel, the friends. One of my favorite quotes is, friends are the family you choose. We still want to keep that kind of atmosphere, but we do want to grow. We want to get a bigger presence, even larger than we are now. On Instagram and social medias. I mean, that's why we're doing the podcast here, to kind of give everybody some insight, give people a way to connect with us, not just at the track. I mean, this is another way that other people can talk to us and find out more about us. And so that's kind of where I see us going.
So I mean, I think we've done a really good job of, over the years, like we're unlike a lot of other organizations that just kind of do the same thing because that's what they've always done. I think we're always experimenting. We're always trying something new, and we either win it or we kill it. And that's how it goes, right? But we're always looking forward. And as the Italians say, right, sempre avanti, which means always forward. We're always looking in that direction to try to improve. And sometimes, we stumble, but we always walk before we run. And so I think in this case, you're talking about growth. We look at the numbers, we look at the trends. We've had people move away. That's another big thing. We have some members that tried to hang on and they were living as far out as Hawaii, right? And that's tough to do, but they want to stay plugged in. They want to know what's going on in the community. And the difference is, for us, it's more grassroots, right? There are certain things like grassroots motorsports out there, but it's still very publicized. It's very marketing heavy. We try to be advertisement free. We try to do a lot of other things to keep it, homegrown like the clubs used to be in the old days.
And by advertisement free, we don't mean that we're not like marketing and advertising ourselves. We mean that we're not out there trying to get other clubs or businesses or stuff to advertise and kind of flood our membership, because we have an asset. Our members are our biggest asset. Not me, not Eric, not the cars. It's our membership. They're the ones that make us who we are. And I mean, many people joke that we have the coaches union. We've got the Northeastern coaches union or instructor union for the track days. We do market ourselves, but we don't sell advertising space within the club.
That's true. And that being said, so talking about growth, we're set up for the future. We're broken into different regions. I mentioned that at the beginning. You and I started in the DMV. The DMV is home. We have a very large Northeast contingent, which is our, Pennsylvania, Philly northwards all the way up to Boston. And then we have our mountain region, which actually follows the Appalachian Trail there. And then we have our southern states, which is everything from, Richmond to Texas, basically. There is a fifth kind of hidden region in there, because we do have members, as far out as Colorado and Michigan and family members, stuff like that. And so, but everybody's connected. I never feel like when I'm talking to somebody that's out in the middle of nowhere, it's not like I didn't just see them the other day. With that being said, we're positioned to grow. We're positioned to have the same size in every region, if not larger in some respects. And we accredit that to our region chiefs, and they're fantastic people. They devote a lot of their time to organizing the events that we put on, being the sounding board for some of the crazy ideas that you and I have. But, a lot of them have taken over some of the special events that we have, be it, Mountain Region doing Summer Bash, which is our big annual family reunion that we've been doing for 6 years now. We've got things like the Animal House that the Northeast region does as our season finale up at Watkins Glen, and other events just like that. Now, when we talk about events for GTM, like what kind of events do we put on? We don't really put on competitive events, right? That's the big misnomer. We're not here to put on a track day or an autocross or whatever, but we are here to support. If you're one of those organizers out there listening, we are here to support you. And that's why Brad made that joke about the coaches union. It's very common for me or Brad to get a phone call to say, hey, I need like 10 guys because we're short on coaches. How many do you think you can drum up? All right, let me make 3 phone calls and a couple messages over Slack and we're good to go. But outside of that, we'll come and help out. We'll promote the events. We'll do cross-pollination. We've done that with HOD or Hooked on Driving. Well, we've done that with the Corvette Club, various other organizations where we try to go in and support them, be their staff, help them as much as we can, bring things, sponsor them, dinners, barbecues, whatever it might be. Because again, there's that void, there's that piece that's missing where it's like we're not putting on a big show, but we're making it super inviting that people want to come party with us. I mean, that's why our pit race event is a fun one, right? The paddock party at pit race. I got to say, it's really hard to say. So say that 3 times fast, but that's a fun one, right? Like this year we were going to do the volleyball tournament, stuff like that. It keeps people around, but instead what we ended up doing was an intramural HOD versus GTM karting event. This would be our second one now. Our third one actually got postponed. We got to schedule it again, but we do fun stuff like that. Those are our types of events, right? Going to pro races together, like Salins, or flying out to go to the Formula One race at COTA, or the Cannonball runs that the Southern States region organizes for us, right? We've done things like going to Road Atlanta together. We've gone to NCM. We were planning on going to Indianapolis, places like that. We've done Mid-Ohio and pit race back to back. That was a long haul. We went to Barber last year. That was really big. That was a bucket list for a lot of us. but stuff like that. So it's all about that group. It's all about inclusion. It's all about, doing that. And to that effect, one of our mountain region chief, he and I were talking about this yesterday. So this is Dan, Mountain Man Dan, which many of you have either know or will get to know very well in upcoming episodes. But he was telling me, as a former vet, and it's kind of funny. We have an interesting demographic in the club. There are a lot of IT guys and there are a lot of DOD, former military folks, or the combination of the two. But one of the things that Dan said is the fellowship within GTM is huge. We're always looking out for each other. It's none of this pissing contest, keeping up with the Joneses. You got that part, I got to have that part too. My car's got to be better. It's none of that kind of thing. It's very much more social. It's very much more family oriented. Like you said, one of the things he wanted me to point out, which is very important, and he'll talk about it more in a follow-up episode. For him, it feels very much like the military. And don't get me wrong, it's not the discipline and the order and we're making you do push-ups in the parking lot. What it is it's that sense of brotherhood and that sense of fraternity and that sense of family. And so, transitioning out of the military, we have picked up a lot of folks, and for them, they've said the same thing to us. This is now kind of my new platoon, my new group. And so that's been really important for them. And I appreciate that. And we give back every year. We try to do some sort of charity event. We've done helmets off to heroes year after year. That's for wounded warriors and those types of things. And those are fantastic events. And we love doing stuff like that.
And in talking about the events that we do, some of the services, the philanthropic events that we hold, we've done a car care clinic for high schoolers. Many of our club members volunteered and came and taught, some high schoolers just general maintenance of their vehicle, what to look for. I mean, these kids are 16 years old, starting to drive for the first time. I'm sure Eric has probably been there. I've been there, stuck on the side of the road at some point, not knowing what to do. Well, Eric probably knew what to do because he came out with a 10-millimeter wrench in his hand.
I lost it though. It's in the woods at Dan's house.
Probably but yeah, so I didn't know how to do any of that stuff when I was in that age. So the idea was to teach these kids, how to change their oil, where the oil goes into the motor, something as basic as that. There are so many people out there in the world driving around in these machines that they have no idea how to keep them running. That was one of the things that we did. We had a golf tournament and we donated all the funds from that to a charity that's very special to people within our organization. We're building a driver's university kind of thing for standardizing coaching materials to bring up coaches from within our organization, growing our coaches union.
Yeah, I mean, we've been complimented many times. It's kind of funny. I guess I took the same approach that my dad did when I started to learn how to drive. He's like, just because you got your license doesn't mean you've passed my test. You know what I mean? And so we've been working on the whole education aspect of GTM since the very beginning. I mean, we'll probably talk about this in another episode, but some of the guys that we've brought through, I mean, we've gotten compliments on how awesome they are. And they'll go through a certification school like SCCA and they'll just blow through it with flying colors. Because it's like we've thrown so many things at them, over the period of a season that they're like, I'm ready for whatever you can give me. But, that's just part of it, right? So education is big for me. It's a soft spot for me. I'm a student of history. I like doing the research and all that and diving deep into things. But I also like sharing that knowledge with other people, not just our members. But if you look at the numbers on our website, we have recurring people coming back to read our articles. And we're reviewing stuff that's not just about, oh yeah, the latest IndyCar race, this happened. And, Lando ran into so-and-so in iRacing and it was a big kerfuffle. Somebody's already covering that, right? So we're trying to cover other stuff that may not be as in plain sight. I got to give a big shout out to our writing team. We got 8 of our members that write for us consistently, and just the stuff they're putting out is really, really good. And it's tough sometimes to come up with new and creative things.
Yeah, and I was just going to add on to that, some of the articles that we've written. I mean, we've got articles about what to expect at your first track day. What didn't I know that I wish I knew then? We've got articles about track insurance, a review on some of the track insurance companies out there. We've got some guys that are really heavy into nutrition, and they wrote articles. It was a 2-part series on nutrition at the track and how to keep from getting that track hangover that we've all suffered from more times than we'd like to admit. So yeah, we've got different experience from within the club that lends itself to to giving the club a different perspective and a different voice.
And so I want to, and the listeners have been kind of putting up with us now for probably 40 minutes or so. But I got to say this, we use the word track a lot. Please don't take it the wrong way. Track is one of these like general words because so is motorsport, right? At least in our community. For us, when we say the track, we're talking an autocross track, a go-kart track, a drag race track, right? Whatever it might be, motorsport is all-encompassing. It has different disciplines in it, be it rally, be it autocross, or road racing, whatever it is. Boating, airplanes, anything with a motor and a way to steer it is motorsport, right? As far as we're concerned. So when we use the word track, full disclaimer, that's a generalization. So that could apply to you as a drag racer, it could apply to you as a kart racer, autocross, or whatever. So just, we set that up in the beginning, but I want to remind everybody again that that's important to us, that we are inclusive of all disciplines. It's not just, going around making a left turn.
And it doesn't just mean 4 wheels either. It could be 2 wheels. It could be 1 wheel. It could be no wheels if you're into boats and things like that.
3 wheels?
3-wheelers, you could have a trike or a 3-wheeler. Yeah, if it's got a motor, as he said, it doesn't matter how many wheels you've got. We all want to hear about it. I mean, we've got people in the club that are even into RC racing.
That's true.
We've got people that race or used to race motorcycles out on the West Coast. I mean, it's endless, the things that we are into in this club.
On the road, off the road, on the water, doesn't matter. It's all the same. So with that being said, a couple other special things just to talk about just before we get into the future and where we're going. Special things about GTM. We do our annual awards night. It actually started as a joke because of your birthday. We would do it at VIR in November. I hate to say while Audi Club was doing their awards banquet, we were doing ours. And then it's become a long-standing tradition. Go ahead.
Yeah, and a little bit of history on awards night. It started out as a joke, as Eric said, like the Dundies from The Office.
100%.
Have you ever seen the show? And actually, the very first award ever given is the DE Champion of the Year award, which went to our very own Eric Monterstelli right there.
Yours truly, yeah.
Yeah, and then the next
It was
year,
rigged, people. The voting was rigged.
Yes, the voting was rigged. There was one person voting, and he happened to be the one who bought the trophy. But the next year was just as ridiculous. It was at Hooters, and they had me stand up and do the cluck cluck dance with the Hooters girls that I will never forget or live down in the club.
We picked up a new member that night who happens to be one of our region chiefs. So everything happens for a reason. But now awards night, like everything we do, it's full send and it gets more ridiculous every year. I mean, if you guys go back into the vault or we'll talk about this at the end of the segment. If you're part of Patreon, you can get access to our behind the scenes award night recordings and stuff like that. Last year was just absolutely bonkers. It was a lot of fun. We did tease some of the things that are coming for the next couple of years in that. So wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But awards night is a big deal. The other thing, we started out doing fantasy football stuff early on, family events like picnics and car shows and whatnot. But one of the other big ones for us was Virtual Racing League, the VRL, which we'll probably talk about in another episode. But VRL was really big for us. It was actually a very good recruitment tool. Granted, we're not doing iRacing. Nobody's buying $20,000 rigs. Don't get excited. We're just playing Forza. But we do have a fully automated computerized timing and scoring system. So, whatever. It is legit. I'm in it for the points. I don't know about you. There's some really good stories there, but we've picked up some members over the years through that system, and we've kept them, and they come back. We have the Forza Survivor Awards for people getting punished. But that's what it is in a nutshell, right? It's a lot of fun. It's bringing people in, showing the other side of what a car club can be. It's not getting together on a Saturday night behind the Dairy Queen and showing off all your chrome.
Yeah, and that's why we do this at the end of the day. It's for fun. All of this is for fun. I mean, yes, there's going to be some gentle ribbing and talking trash and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's all about fun. If you're not having fun, then what's the point of doing it? And we all in GTM have fun, and we all love going to the events and doing the different things that we do in the club, and even just us being the ones that put it on, us and the crew chiefs and the different committees and stuff that we have. We do it because it's fun. Exactly.
Or it's the constant source of caffeine and fuel provided by Monster, Haribo gummy bears, and Fig Newtons. Just let you know, that's typical GTM diet.
and the official drink of GTM used to be the White Russian, but now it's graduated to Jaeger and Monster.
That's true. The Jaeger Monster is pretty nice. Thank you, Sam. I curse you all the time. But no, I mean, again, all in good fun, all in good spirits. And what we're gonna do, let's talk about the future. So the podcast, right? We have been talking about this for probably 2 years, and we finally are now talking to you instead of talking to ourselves about it. We have a lot of good material out there. We have a lot of stuff that really gets left on the cutting room floor when it comes to our articles, where we could really expand, dive deeper. We've got some really passionate members that want to share their stories with you, just like we said in our mission statement. I've got some stuff I want to go deep in with. We've got some really cool debates, like what should I buy and things like that, where it's going to be chaotic, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And we hope that you're going to enjoy that too. So that's the podcast side of things. Obviously, we've been blowing out Instagram. We've been trying to, trend our own hashtags like GTM Spicy Italians and GTM Francais and a bunch of other ones that we have. And those have been really good for us. And we're trying to bring something unique, right? It's not the same picture of the orange Lamborghini that they had on Jalopnik, that was on Car and Driver, that was wherever.
Yeah, you can only see so many pictures of a silver GTI with 666 all over it, or a black TT before you unsubscribe.
But hey, I can post stuff from like 1957 that nobody's seen before, like a Renault Dauphine, and it's people go, what is that? And we get like 93,000 likes. But but that's the whole idea: something new, something different, something interesting, a breath of fresh air. When we plan out our years, we usually start in the winter time, and we meet quarterly and go through all that kind of stuff. Not to give you all the dirty details there, but some events are very variable. And so Summer Bash is always bigger and badder and more chaotic, and it keeps getting bigger and more people keep coming out, and we tend to take over the track, and it's a lot of fun. And we've only done one Summer Bash outside of maybe this year, thanks to COVID, that wasn't at a track. And the reason we do it at a track is we don't have a problem with parking. There's plenty of spectator, space, no admission fees. You can have a lot of fun. You can ride along with a lot of us that are coaches and go for a thrill ride. They do parade laps, all sorts of, we try to get you excited about motorsport, and that's an easy way for us to do it. And that event is a lot of fun, and it is a very family-friendly event. The Cannonball Run, like I said, this year, the top three were Indianapolis GP Circuit, Club Motorsport, and we were going to try to go back to NCM. So we hadn't really decided yet, and thanks to COVID, we still haven't made a decision. So the Cannonball Run is still up for grabs. The way we figure that out, just so you guys know, we're super scientific about it. We basically draw a line from the Washington Monument 12 hours out, and then take a protractor and just kind of go around in a circle. And whatever track fits in that radius, we try to go as far as we can. There's been some talk about going to Road America. There's been some talk to really starting to stretch our legs, because once you've done 700 miles, what's another 150 at that point? It really doesn't matter. And that would really get us more connected with, especially with our members up in Michigan and stuff like that are really big fans of that track. And it's a bucket list for me too. I want to do it. Now, granted, there's the crazy, we're going to put all the cars on a car trailer and go to Laguna Seca, but
my personal dream right there. Laguna Seca, and to put all the cars on a boat and drive Brands Hatch.
Yeah, 100%. COTA is still being talked about. It's doable, but
I need about 500 more horsepower to do COTA.
Exactly. That's the big problem. But it would be a lot of fun to say, hey, I drove that track. There are some bucket list motorsports races to go to that we haven't seen that we'd want to do. A bunch of us used to do F1 when it was in Indy, been to Global Rallycross. I'm a big Group B fan. We can talk about that for a whole nother episode. Probably one of the few people at the WRC in this club. Obviously, going to Salins last year was a blast. You got behind the scenes. We can talk about that at another time. But one of the big ones, one of the big things that's coming, the big Cannonball 2023. Right? I'm not trying to put this too far out into the universe. We're going to Le Mans. No, we're not campaigning our own car. The plan is to go as a group. Right?
What class would we even be in if we campaigned our own car? It would be Le Mans L
GT turd with the 1.6 Miata going around. We'd have the slowest lap on record at Le Mans.
Lots of bump drafting.
100%. I was right on his tail. I can hear it now. I was right on his tail. But that being said, the plan is to go to Le Mans in 23. The reason 23 is special is it's the 100th anniversary of Le Mans, not necessarily the 100th running of Le Mans, but the 100th anniversary. So for a bunch of us, that's special. We've always wanted to do it. Every time we ask, where should we go? somebody stands up and goes, Le Mans! I mean, they've been saying it for 6 years, right? So we're going to do it. I don't know. The future is still unwritten. That's the best part, right? And we do it all. Just, it's like, send it. Let's go. Let's just go do it.
So I'm going to throw this out then. What do our listeners want to do? What do they want to see in the future? You know, at the end of this, you're going to get our contact information if you don't already have it. Some of you, if you're members, you're in Slack and stuff. Let us know what you want. What do you want? Where do you want the club to go? Give us suggestions. What don't you like that we're doing? What do you like that we're doing? You know, what do you want to see from Gran Touring Motorsports?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we covered quite a bit in our first episode. This is pretty good. Hopefully we didn't put anybody to sleep. And if we did, you know, market that. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
So Brad, any final thoughts before we really wrap it up?
No, I'm happy to be doing this. I'm glad. I've been talking about doing a podcast for a couple of years now. I'm glad we finally got off our butts and started doing it. I know it's all been my fault, but you know, I've had some things going on that precluded me from being able to do it, but now here we are. So I'm excited and curious to see where it leads.
Absolutely. All right, my friend. Well, I think that about wraps up episode number 1. So with that, peace.
Peace.
So there you have it. He broke it. I fixed it. Until next time, always remember, if you can take it apart without breaking it, you can surely fix it. From all of us at GTM, merry motoring.
If you like what you heard and want to learn more about GTM, be sure to check us out at www.gtmotorsports.org. You can also find us on Instagram at Gran Touring Motorsports. Also, if you want to get involved or have suggestions for future shows, you can call or text us at 202-630-1770 or send us an email at crewchief@gtmotorsports.org. We'd love to hear from you.
Hey listeners, Crew Chief Eric here. Do you like what you've seen, heard, and read from GTM? Great, so do we, and we have a lot of fun doing it. But please remember, we're fueled by volunteers and remain a no annual fee organization. But we still need help to keep the momentum going so that we can continue to record, write, edit, and broadcast all of your favorite content. So be sure to visit www.patreon.com/GT Motorsports or visit our website and click in the top right corner on the support and donate to learn how you can help.